I've been watching anime long enough to have strong opinions about almost everything, but if you ask me where the medium hits hardest, I keep coming back to one-off movies. One story, one sitting, no filler, no waiting 9 years for season 2. Today I'm walking through the standalone anime films I genuinely think everyone should see at least once in their life. Let me start off with one that made my jaw unhinge every single time I rewatch it. Redline is a film Madhouse spent 7 years and reportedly over 100,000 hand-drawn frames to make, and it feels like every single one of those drawings is trying to deck you in the face. The plot is almost beside the point. Space pugilists, illegal galactic racing, a driver named JP with a pompadour that defies local gravity. But what really matters is how every frame feels alive, like the art itself is sweating. I've watched a lot of stylish anime, but nothing moves like this, nothing sounds like this, and nothing else commits this hard to being loud and cool and stupid in the best possible way. If you've never seen Redline, clear a weekend, hit play loud, and let Takashi Koike rewire how you think animation is allowed to look.
This 目に見えない魔法の輪がある。私は外側の人間。でもそんなのはどうでもいいの。私が嫌い。
Picture a seaside village beside a salt marsh, mist hanging low over the water, a lonely girl sketching in a notebook, and a blonde figure waving from a window in a mansion that might not actually exist. When Marnie was there is Studio Ghibli quietly making one of the most emotionally devastating films in their entire library, and it's also the one nobody brings up at dinner parties. It follows Anna, a kid sent to the coast for her asthma, who befriends a mysterious girl named Marnie at an abandoned house. Now, I don't want to spoil the central twist, but when it lands, it genuinely rearranged something in my chest. Watch it on a rainy afternoon, ideally alone, and bring some tissues. A film about loneliness that ended up making me feel less alone, which is honestly exactly what a great movie is supposed to do.
アンナお願い許してくれるって言ってもちろんよ許してあげるあなたが好きよ何
There's a before Akira and an after Akira, and if you spend any real time around this medium, you already know which side of the line you're standing on. Released in 1988, it basically kicked the door in for anime's global reputation overnight. Neo Tokyo, biker gangs, psychic children, Tetsuo's arm doing unspeakable things. It's all here, stitched together with animation so dense that the budget allegedly broke records at the time. Now, it's almost been 40 years and it still feels angrier, more paranoid, more alive than most things released this decade. The soundtrack alone could hypnotize a small country. If you want to understand why anime matters culturally, then this is homework. If you just want to watch Kaneda's bike slide across the screen for the 100th time, well, you know what? That works too.
でもいつかは私たちにももう始まっているからね。
二度とこの手にできる思わなかった。
大事なものだったのでは。
一番大切なものを開ける鍵さ。
一番大切なもの
Satoshi Kon made only 4 feature films in his lifetime, and Millennium Actress might be the one where he's most openly in love with the craft. The setup is deceptively simple. A documentary crew interviews a retired film star named Chiyoko, and as she tells her life story, the camera itself keeps falling through the cracks between her memories and her old movies. You'll find her running across a battlefield in feudal Japan, or she's on a Showa-era train, and the interviewers are somehow chasing her through every era of Japanese cinema. It does sound confusing, and I guess it kind of is, but that's the point here. This is a film about how we tell stories about ourselves and how the line between who we were and who we played on screen gets beautifully blurred. Susumu Hirasawa's score will live rent-free in your head for weeks. I adore this movie.
私行きます必ず会いに行きます
2 Two figures on a cold mountain pass, snow coming down sideways, and a fight choreography so clean that it could teach masterclasses. Sword of the Stranger is a 2007 Bones film that I'm convinced more people name-check than actually sit down and watch, which is a genuine shame. The plot is lean. A quiet ronin with a katana tied shut in its scabbard ends up protecting a runaway kid named Kotaro from a squad of Ming Dynasty assassins. That's it. I mean, that's the whole pitch. But the actual sword in this film, particularly the climactic duel, is arguably the best sword animation ever committed to anime. No philosophical monologues, no magic powers, just weight, footwork, and blood on snow. If you've ever wanted an action movie that respects your time and your intelligence in equal measure, then this one has been waiting for you to finally press play.
ジョゼや
この家で働くってことや。
四つ葉のクローバー集めてこい。見たらしばく。よそ者は出ていけ。
あいつ泣かす。
Some films crush you with spectacle, and some quietly sneak into your emotional blind spot and set up camp for the night. Josee, the tiger, and the fish is firmly the second kind. This 2020 Bones adaptation follows Tsuneo, a marine biology student who starts working for a young woman who uses a wheelchair and lives under her grandmother's very protective thumb. She's sharp-tongued, she's scared of the world outside, she's obsessed with a children's picture book about tigers. He's trying to save up for a trip abroad. What develops between them isn't a grand sweeping romance, it's small and a little bit more honest than that, and the film is careful about not turning disability into an inspirational prop. By the time the credits rolled, I was a mess in a very specific, grateful way. Two people making each other braver. I haven't shaken it.
欲しいものに手を伸ばすのがどれだけ怖いことか。
管理人となら見れる思ったんや。
俺となら。
浮いてる。
Before Totoro, before Mononoke, before Miyazaki was Miyazaki the international brand, there was Castle in the Sky. The 1986 film is technically Studio Ghibli's first official production, and you can feel the whole future of the studio already unpacking its bags in here. A boy named Bazu catches a girl named Shita literally falling out of the sky, and what follows is sky pirates, airships, a forgotten floating kingdom, and one of the gentlest, most hummable Johisaishi scores ever committed to film. I grew up watching this on loop, and I still get misty-eyed every time Laputa drifts into view. It's pure, uncut adventure storytelling with warmth baked into every frame, and it reminds you that big fantasy doesn't have to be cynical or dark to mean anything. If you need a soft place to land, this movie is a quilt you can rewatch forever.
Hashiro の好きなの？僕何もないから。この世界にはすごく簡単なルールがあるんだ。大抵のことは100メートルを誰よりも速く走れば。
If you told me a feature-length anime about two guys running in a straight line for 100 meters would make me tear up, I'd have assumed you were exaggerating. Turns out though, I was the one underestimating the sport. 100 meters is Genji Iwaisawa's follow-up to Ongaku, adapted from the same Uoto manga pipeline that brought us Orb, and it's easily one of the most quietly striking sports films I've seen in years. It tracks Togashi, a naturally gifted sprinter, and Gomiya, the obsessive grinder who finds his purpose the day Togashi teaches him how to run properly. Their rivalry stretches from grade school into adulthood, each race reshaping how they see themselves. The rotoscoped animation style uses stillness as a weapon. There's a 3.5-minute unbroken rain sequence in here that reportedly took over a year to animate, and when you see it, you'll understand why.
次のレースは俺の25年。そして今、100円。
I'm not sure anybody really needs me to sell them on Totoro. I mean, it is Totoro. Released in 1988 alongside Grave of the Fireflies, Miyazaki's quietest film is basically about two sisters adjusting to life in the Japanese countryside while their mother recovers in the hospital. There's no villain. There's barely a plot. There's just mushrooms, dust sprites, a giant fuzzy forest spirit, and the world rendered at child eye level. What makes Totoro hit differently now than when I was a kid is realizing how much of its magic is actually about uncertainty, illness, and the quiet fear of losing a parent. A gentle film that holds hard things very tenderly.
雨ねえ今から晴れるよ
Tokyo under endless rain, a runaway teenager sleeping in a McDonald's, and a girl who can clear the sky if she prays for it. That's the opening emotional handshake of Weathering With You. Makoto Shinkai's 2019 follow-up to Your Name got slightly unfair comparisons on release, and I'm here to defend this one, because I actually think it's the bolder film of the two. Hodaka runs away to Tokyo, meets Hina, and discovers she has the power to part clouds with a wish at a cost. Where Your Name is about yearning across distance, Weathering With You asks a more uncomfortable question. What are you willing to let the world pay for the person you love? Shinkai gives us the usual glass-polished visuals and a rad-wimp soundtrack designed to wreck you, but the film's real edge is that ending. I still haven't fully stopped arguing with it.
ただの空模様にこんなにも気持ちを動かされてしまう。心をひなさんに動かされてしまう。
Just taking a quick second to remind you to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. There's a specific kind of grief that comes from losing a friend who made you better at the thing you love, and Look Back is one of the only films I've seen that truly understands it.
私部屋から出てよかったまたねまたね
Based on Tatsuki Fujimoto's one-shot, this 2024 adaptation clocks in at under an hour, and somehow it hit me harder than most 3-hour prestige dramas. Fujino and Gyomoto are two aspiring manga artists, one loud and competitive, one reclusive and shy, whose lives pull together and apart through school, through art, through the agonizing grind of making something nobody asked for. I don't want to spoil where this goes, but the last 10 minutes are devastating. Watch it with your phone across the room. Watch it with nobody around. And if you've ever made anything for anyone out of love, it's gonna get you in the chest.
あんたいつまで漫画描いてんの？そろそろ絵描くの卒業した方がいいよ。
何してんだ私じゃあ藤野ちゃんはなんで描いてるの
I'll be honest with you, I can't rewatch Grave of the Fireflies. I'm not sure anyone does. This 1988 film, based on a semi-autobiographical story, follows two siblings, Seita and Setsuko, trying to survive in the final months of World War II after their mother dies in the Kobe firebombings. You know in the first 5 minutes how it ends. That's the whole structural trick. The director refuses to give you the comfort of suspense. Every frame becomes a long, unblinking look at what war actually costs in a way no statistic ever could. It's one of the most beautifully animated Ghibli films ever made. Calling it a classic does feel wrong. It's more like a memorial. Watch it once, sit with it, don't feel obliged to revisit it, okay? Some films aren't for enjoyment. They exist to make sure we remember.
なんで2人すぐ死んでしまうん
そなたと戦いたくない。もののけ姫。
山犬に心を奪われた哀れな娘が私を殺そうと狙い続けている。
Miyazaki reportedly meant Princess Mononoke to be his final film, and when I watch it, I kind of buy it, because everything he'd been circling for decades seems to land hard with this one. Released in 1997, this is easily the most morally thorny thing Studio Ghibli ever produced, and it holds up better every single year. Ashitaka, a cursed young warrior, rides west and gets caught between San, a girl raised by wolves who despises humanity, and Lady Iboshi, who runs an ironworks that's slowly eating the forest. The film refuses to pick a villain. The wolves aren't pure, the humans aren't evil. Nature and industry both have claims, and neither side gets a clean win. It's an epic fantasy that grapples with something real, backed by Joe Hisaishi at the peak of his powers. If you only ever watch one Studio Ghibli film, I'd argue this is the one.
定めは変えられない。だがただ待つか自ら赴くかは決められる。
さくらはどうしてお前なんかと。
なんか答えなさいよ。
君は本当に死ぬの？
I Want to Eat Your Pancreas is a 2018 adaptation of Yoru Sumino's novel, and underneath the slightly alarming name is one of the most emotionally brutal coming-of-age films I've ever sat through. A quiet, antisocial high school boy accidentally finds a diary in a hospital waiting room and learns that his loud, popular classmate Sakura has a terminal pancreatic illness. The premise sounds like every tearjerker anime ever made, and to be fair, it leans into that tradition hard. But what elevates this movie is how carefully it sketches the boy's discomfort with closeness, and how Sakura keeps pushing him, actually, to be a person while she still has time. I went in, rolling my eyes at the title, but I came out staring at a wall for about 45 minutes. Just watch it, you'll understand the name.
劇場アニメ「君の水槽を食べたい」
君と出会うただそれだけのために選択して生きてきた。
おめえ生きてんのか死んでんのか。
化け物。
俺と一緒に来るか。化け物の世界があるということ。
Mamoru Hosoda has quietly become anime's specialist in found family stories, and The Boy and the Beast is him working in full swing. A runaway kid named Ren stumbles from Shibuya into a parallel beast realm, where he ends up unofficially adopted by Kumatetsu, a loud, slovenly, deeply irresponsible bear warrior with a chip on his shoulder the size of a shrine. It starts as a slapstick martial arts story and gradually becomes something much more tender, a meditation on what it means to teach someone when you yourself are still unfinished. Hosoda's visual signature, those crisp character designs, those expansive city vistas, is all over this, and the action choreography is genuinely exciting. But the emotional core is the relationship. A man raising a son he doesn't know how to raise, a boy learning that strength isn't what he thought it was. By the climax, I was fully in.
化け物の子。
お家がわからないの？
怖がるな。私はそなたの味方だ。
A family's car driving down an overgrown road, a father who eats food he shouldn't, a girl named Chihiro suddenly alone in a town full of spirits. If you've seen Spirited Away, you already know this opening by heart, don't you? It's arguably the most famous anime film ever made, the one that put an Oscar on Miyazaki's shelf, and over 20 years later, it somehow still feels new every time I rewatch it. Chihiro ends up working at a bathhouse for gods under the thumb of a witch named Yubaba, and the film turns into a coming-of-age story told entirely through strangeness. What I love about it is how it rarely explains itself. There's no lore dump, no magic system, no neat resolution, just a kid learning how to be brave in a world that doesn't owe her any answers, growing up dressed as a fever dream.
一度会ったことは忘れないものさ。思い出せないだけで。
A pop idol watches her career collapse in real time. Her stalker starts running a fake blog in her name, and reality itself begins peeling off the walls around her. Perfect Blue is Satoshi Kon's 1997 debut, and it remains one of the most uncomfortable, prescient films the medium has ever produced. The premise sounds almost quaint in 2026, an idol trying to transition into acting, someone impersonating her online, her grip on identity slipping, but Kon was basically diagnosing internet culture years before most people had dial-up at home. The editing is what really makes this one work. Match cuts that trick you into distrusting your own eyes. Scenes that replay with new context and suddenly mean something horrible. Mima's slow unraveling is genuinely hard to watch in places, and that's the point. If you've only ever heard this movie name dropped by Darren Aronofsky, do yourself a favor and see the original.
疑似体験ってどういうことです？
奥さんも子供も癒しない。
全部偽物の記憶で夢のようなものなんです。あなたは何者かに利用されて政府関係者にゴーストハックを仕掛けてたんですよ。
If Akira broke the door down, Ghost in the Shell walked in, sat down, and calmly asked what exactly consciousness is supposed to be. This is simultaneously one of the most influential cyberpunk films ever made, and one of the most meditative, a paradox it somehow pulls off without ever feeling pretentious. Major Motoko Kusanagi hunts a hacker called the Puppet Master across a rain-slicked, neon-drowned Hong Kong-adjacent future, and the plot gradually stops being about the mission and starts being about whether she, a fully cybernetic body, even has a soul of her own. Genji Kawai's score is hypnotic. The animation's texture work, those water droplets, those reflections, still borderline impossible. Whatever the Wachowskis eventually built in The Matrix, this one got there first. I rewatch it every couple of years just to feel smaller.
Na, Mitsuha. 目が覚めても忘れないようにさ。名前書いとこうぜ。ほら。
I remember the year Your Name came out, watching the global anime discourse suddenly double in size overnight. Makoto Shinkai's 2016 film became the highest grossing anime movie ever made at the time, and yeah, it absolutely earned every bit of that. Two teenagers, a boy in Tokyo and a girl in a rural mountain town, start randomly swapping bodies with no warning, and what begins as a comedy about waking up in the wrong life slowly turns into something much more cosmic. I don't want to spoil the midpoint if for some reason you haven't even seen it, but the moment the film tilts into its real genre is one of those gut punch twists that reframes everything before it. Shinkai's visual style is pushed to full blast here. Radwimps on the soundtrack, crying in a parking lot after. Some movies deserve their hype, this is one of them. I want to close with one that I think about more than almost any other anime film. A Silent Voice is a rare story that treats bullying, disability, and teenage shame with the complexity they actually deserve. Shoya Ishida tormented his deaf classmate Shoko Nishimiya in elementary school. Years later, isolated and suicidal, he sets out to find her to try and make something right, fully aware that some things can't be fully made right. This film is extraordinary, not because of the message, it's the texture. The way Yamada frames feet, hands, the surface of a pond. The way silence is used as a storytelling tool rather than a gap in dialogue. A long, slow, imperfect study of becoming a better person. If I missed your favourite one-off movie, then drop it in the comments. I do actually read them, probably. Until next time, keep watching anime, keep being insufferable about it online, and I'll catch you in the next one.